Your life is falling apart. Everything you built is unraveling. The relationships, the identity, the certainty about who you are and where you're going. It's all coming undone, thread by thread. And you're terrified because you think you're losing yourself. But what if I told you that you're not losing yourself? What if the unraveling isn't destruction at all? What if it's the most precise, the most necessary thing that could be happening to you right now? I've learned something that completely changed how I see these moments when life falls apart. And by the end of this, you'll understand why your unraveling might be the exact process that leads to your awakening. Let me start with what's actually happening when you feel like you're coming undone. There's this deep teaching I've studied about transformation. It says that before anything can truly become what it's meant to be, it must first be broken down, not destroyed, dismantled, separated, unraveled. Think about a seed. A seed contains everything needed to become a tree, but the seed must crack open. The shell that protected it must break. The structure that held it together must come apart. And here's what's interesting. From the outside, it looks like the seed is being destroyed. If you didn't know better, you'd think something terrible was happening to it. But that cracking, that breaking, that's not death. That's birth. The seed isn't losing itself. It's becoming itself. Your unraveling works the same way. I know it doesn't feel that way. When your relationship ends, when your career collapses, when the person you thought you were doesn't fit anymore, it feels like failure, like regression, like everything you worked for is disappearing. But here's what I've come to understand. That tightly wound version of yourself, that carefully constructed identity, that controlled life you built, it was the shell, and the shell served its purpose. It protected you, it gave you structure, it kept you safe. But shells aren't meant to last forever. Shells are meant to be outgrown. The unraveling isn't random. It's not punishment. It's not evidence that you did something wrong. The unraveling is how you grow beyond the container that can no longer hold who you're becoming. Let me tell you about a teaching that made this clear to me. There's a story about oil and water having a conversation. The water looks at the oil floating above it and says, "You're heavier than I am. You're dirtier than I am. So why do you get to float above me? I'm the pure one. I'm the clean one. I should be on top." And the oil responds with something profound. It says, "You haven't experienced what I've experienced. Yes, I started as a seed. I was planted in the earth, buried in darkness, hidden underground where no one could see me. Then I began to grow. And just when I was reaching toward the light, I was cut down, severed. After that, I was refined, put under pressure, ground down in a press until everything I was became something new. Then I was transformed into oil, and finally, I was set on fire." The oil says, "After all that, after being buried, cut, pressed, refined, and burned, of course I'm going to rise. Of course I'm elevated. The position I hold now isn't despite the difficulty. It's because of it. This is what your unraveling is doing. Every thread that's coming loose isn't a loss. It's a releasing. Every structure that's falling apart isn't failure. It's refinement. You're being separated from what was never truly you in the first place. I've learned that God doesn't break people arbitrarily. There's a precision to it, a purpose. The divine doesn't just throw you into chaos for no reason. The unraveling is actually a form of divine attention. You're being worked on, shaped, prepared. There's another teaching that describes this perfectly. It talks about mirrors. Iron has the quality to shine. Glass has the quality to reflect. But if you take raw iron or raw glass, you can't see anything in it. It's dull, opaque, useless as a mirror. You could stand in front of it all day and never see your reflection. But if you polish that iron, if you work on that glass, if you rub it and refine it and keep at it until every impurity is removed, eventually it becomes so clear, so pure, that you can see your face in it. Your heart is that mirror. Your soul has the quality to reflect the divine. But the raw version, the unrefined version, can't do it yet. The polishing is necessary. And here's the thing about polishing. It involves friction. It involves pressure. It involves things being worn away. The unraveling is the polishing. Every difficult experience, every loss, every moment when you thought you couldn't handle it, That was friction removing impurities. That was pressure refining your capacity. That was the unnecessary being worn away so the essential could emerge. The version of you that's unraveling, it needed to unravel. Because underneath all those tightly wound threads, underneath all that control and certainty and carefully managed identity, there's something truer waiting. Let me be specific about what unravels and what emerges. Your ego unravels. That part of you that needs to be right, that needs to be in control, that needs to be seen a certain way. That part that says, I am this job, or I am this relationship, or I am this reputation. That identification with external things, it has to come apart, because your true self isn't your job. Your true self isn't your relationship status. Your true self isn't what other people think of you. And as long as you're tangled up in those identifications, you can't access who you actually are. The unraveling strips those false identifications away, not to hurt you, to free you. Your certainty unravels, that feeling that you had it all figured out, that you knew the plan, that you could predict and control how life would go. That certainty was comfortable, but it was also limiting. It kept you in a small, manageable box. When your certainty unravels, when you're forced to admit, I don't know, something beautiful becomes possible. You become teachable again. You become open again. You become available to guidance you would have missed when you thought you already knew. Your defenses unravel. Those walls you built to protect yourself, those patterns you developed to stay safe, those behaviors that kept people at a distance or kept you in control or kept pain away. They worked for a season, but they also kept out connection. They blocked intimacy. They prevented real love from reaching you. The unraveling dismantles those defenses. And yes, it makes you vulnerable. But vulnerability isn't weakness. Vulnerability is the only state in which real transformation can happen. You can't be changed from behind walls. You can't be refined when you're armored. The defenses have to come down. Your old story unravels. That narrative you told yourself about who you are and what your life means. Maybe it was a victim story. Maybe it was a hero story. Maybe it was a story of not being enough, or needing to prove yourself, or carrying your family's legacy. Whatever story you were living, it's coming apart. And I know that's disorienting. Your story gave you identity. It gave you purpose. It explained your past and predicted your future. But stories can become prisons, and the unraveling is breaking you out of a story that was too small for who you're becoming. Here's what I've noticed. The unraveling always happens before the awakening. Always. You can't wake up to truth while you're still asleep in illusion. You can't see clearly while your vision is clouded. You can't become what you're meant to be while you're still clinging to what you were. The spiritual path has this pattern built into it. Burial before growth, death before resurrection, unraveling before awakening. I've learned there are actually two ways this happens. Two paths of spiritual transformation. The first path is what you might call the seeker's path. This is when you choose it. When you consciously decide, I want to grow, I want to change, I want to become better. And so you do the work. You pray, you meditate, you study, you examine yourself. You consciously let go of things that aren't serving you. You actively unravel the parts of yourself that need to change. This path is hard. It takes discipline. It takes courage to look at yourself honestly and choose to release what's comfortable but limiting. But at least you're driving. You're choosing when and how to do the work. The second path is different. This is the path where God Himself does the unraveling, where the divine throws you into situations you didn't choose, where life itself becomes the polisher, where hardship and loss and difficulty strip away everything that isn't essential. On this path, you're not choosing to let go. Things are being taken from you. You're not deciding to change. You're being changed. The unraveling isn't something you're doing, it's something that's happening to you. And here's what I've learned. The people on this second path, the ones who get thrown into the fire they didn't light, they often end up more refined than the ones who chose it. Because when you choose your growth, you still have control. You can stop when it gets too uncomfortable. You can avoid the deepest work. But when God is doing the refining, when life is doing the polishing, you don't get to stop. You don't get to avoid the depth. The unraveling goes all the way down to the foundation. And what emerges from that process is something remarkable. The teaching says that these people become like polished mirrors, so clear, so refined, that the character of the divine begins to reflect in them. They develop qualities they never could have developed through comfort. Compassion that only comes from suffering. Wisdom that only comes from being lost. Strength that only comes from being broken and rebuilt. Your unraveling might be this second path. You didn't choose it. You don't want it. You'd give anything for it to stop. But what if it's not stopping? Because you're being prepared for something that requires this level of refinement. Let me tell you what happens during the unraveling that most people miss. You're not just falling apart. You're being reorganized. You're not just losing things. You're being emptied so you can be filled with something better. You're not just experiencing chaos. You're in the space between what was and what will be. Think about that seed again. When the shell cracks and the seed begins to grow, there's a moment where it's not a seed anymore, but it's not a tree yet either. It's in between. It's in transition. From the outside, it looks like nothing, like a mess, like something formless and undefined. But underground, invisible to everyone, roots are spreading. Structure is forming. Foundation is being laid. The process looks like nothing, because the most important work is happening where no one can see it. You're in that underground phase right now, the unraveling on the surface, that visible falling apart. That's just what people can see. What they can't see is what's happening in the depths, the roots you're growing, the foundation you're building, the strength you're developing in the darkness. And here's something I've learned about this phase. You can't rush it. You can't skip it. You can't microwave spiritual growth. Seeds don't become trees overnight. Oil doesn't get refined in an instant. Mirrors aren't polished with one quick pass. The unraveling takes time because the becoming takes time. And every moment of falling apart is actually a moment of being rebuilt. You just can't see the rebuilding yet because it's happening in places too deep for observation. There's this tendency we have to want the awakening without the unraveling. We want the transformation without the transition. We want to become our highest self, but we don't want to release our current self. We want the growth, but not the growing pains. But that's not how it works. That's never been how it works. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly by adding wings to what it already is. It completely dissolves. Inside the cocoon, the caterpillar literally turns into liquid. The whole structure breaks down. Everything that made it a caterpillar has to be unmade before it can be remade as a butterfly. Your unraveling is your cocoon phase. This is your liquefaction. This is your complete breaking down so you can be completely remade. And I know it's terrifying, because when you're in the liquid phase, when everything that defined you has dissolved, you have no idea what you're becoming. You just know you're not what you were, and you can't yet see what you will be. This is where faith becomes everything. Not blind faith, not naive hope, but a deep trust that the process itself is intelligent, that the unraveling knows what it's doing, that the divine who started this transformation will complete it. I've learned to look for specific signs that the unraveling is actually awakening. Ways to know this is growth, not just destruction. First sign, you feel more authentic in your mess than you ever felt in your put-together life. When you stop pretending, when you stop performing, when you let people see you struggling, and it feels more real, more true, more like yourself than all those years of having it together. That's awakening starting to emerge. Second sign, you develop compassion you didn't have before. When you're unraveling, you finally understand what other people are going through. You stop judging. You stop comparing. You develop this capacity to hold space for others' pain because you've been in that pain yourself. That compassion? That's a quality that only comes through difficulty. That's refinement. Third sign, you start trusting something bigger than yourself. When your control is stripped away and you realize you're held anyway. When your plans fall apart and something better emerges. When you're forced to let go and discover that letting go leads to receiving. That trust, that's what awakening feels like. Fourth sign, you lose interest in things that used to matter, and become interested in things you never cared about. Surface stuff stops mattering. What people think stops controlling you. Status, image, external success, it all becomes less important. And meaning, purpose, truth, connection, that all becomes essential. Your values are reorganizing. That's transformation. Fifth sign. You encounter God in a way you never have before. Not God as concept, not God as belief, God as presence, as reality, as the ground beneath you when everything else falls away. When your unraveling brings you to the end of yourself, and you discover that the end of yourself is where the divine has been waiting. That's awakening. Let me be practical about what to do with your unraveling right now. First, stop fighting it. I know that sounds counterintuitive. Everything in you wants to put the pieces back together. Everything in you wants to stop the falling apart. But sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is stop resisting and allow the process. Resistance doesn't prevent the unraveling. It just makes it more painful. It's like trying to hold a caterpillar together in the cocoon. You can't stop the liquefaction. You just exhaust yourself trying. Let it come apart. Let the old version of you dissolve. Let the identifications and certainties and defenses unravel. Not because you're giving up, but because you're finally giving in to a process that's wiser than your resistance. Second, get quiet. The unraveling is loud. It's chaotic. It's overwhelming. Your mind is screaming. Your emotions are flooding. Everyone around you has opinions about what you should do. It's noise on top of noise. You need silence. You need stillness. You need space to hear what's actually happening underneath all that noise. Because underneath the chaos, there's a quiet voice. There's guidance. There's direction. But you'll never hear it while you're drowning in the noise. Create silence. Even just 5 minutes a day. Sit with yourself. Sit with God. Sit with the process. Let yourself be quiet enough to hear what's trying to emerge. Third, release what wants to go. I know you're holding on. I know you're trying to save things that are clearly ending. Relationships that are obviously over. Identities that don't fit anymore. Plans that aren't working. You're holding on because letting go feels like losing. But here's what I've learned. When something is meant to stay, you don't have to grip it. When something is truly yours, it doesn't require white-knuckled effort to keep. The things that require desperate holding, those are the things that are trying to leave. And they're trying to leave because they're not part of your next chapter. Let them go, not with bitterness, not with resentment, but with trust that if they were meant to stay, they would. And their leaving is making space for what's meant to come. Fourth, trust the timing. This is the hardest part. You want to be through it. You want to be on the other side. You want the awakening without the unraveling still happening. But transformation has its own timeline. Seeds know when to sprout. Oil knows how long the refining takes. Your soul knows how long you need in the cocoon. Rushing doesn't help. Forcing doesn't work. You have to trust the process enough to move at its pace, not yours. The unraveling takes as long as it takes. The becoming takes as long as it takes. Your job isn't to speed it up. Your job is to remain present through it, to stay conscious through it, to keep your heart open through it. Fifth, look for the roots. Remember what I said about the seed underground? The most important work is invisible. While everything on the surface is falling apart, something underground is growing. Pay attention to what's growing in you during this unraveling. What strength are you developing? What wisdom are you gaining? What capacity is expanding? What's becoming clearer? What's becoming truer? The roots you're growing right now in the dark will be the foundation for everything that grows later in the light. Don't miss the underground work because you're focused on the surface chaos. Here's what I want you to understand. Your unraveling is not a detour from your spiritual path. It is your spiritual path. This is not a problem to be solved. This is a process to be trusted. You're not broken, you're breaking open. And when you break open, when you finally stop holding yourself together and allow the unraveling to do its work, something remarkable happens. The tightly wound thread becomes free. The rigid structure becomes fluid. The defended heart becomes open. You don't lose yourself in the unraveling. You find yourself, the real self, the essential self, the self that was always there underneath all those layers of protection and performance and pretending. That's what awaiting means. It means waking up to who you actually are, not who you were told to be, not who you tried to become, not who you pretended to be, but who you are when everything else falls away. Your unraveling is stripping away everything that isn't truly you. And what remains? What's still there when everything else is gone? That's your essence. That's your truth. That's what you've been looking for your whole life. The spiritual traditions have known this forever. They all point to this same process. You must die before you can be reborn. You must lose your life to find it. You must decrease so something greater can increase. The false self must unravel so the true self can emerge. This is not new wisdom, but it's wisdom that has to be lived to be understood. You can hear it 1,000 times and not get it. But when you're in the middle of your unraveling, when your life is actually falling apart and you're terrified and you don't know what's happening, that's when this teaching becomes real. That's when you understand it in your bones. You're being refined. You're being polished. You're being prepared, not for something small, for something that requires this level of depth, for something that demands this kind of transformation. And here's what I know for certain. When you emerge from this unraveling, when you come through this cocoon phase, when you rise from this underground burial, you will be different. You will be clearer. You will be stronger. You will be more yourself than you've ever been. The unraveling you're in right now, it's not the end of your story. It's not even the middle. It's the beginning. It's the seed cracking open. It's the cocoon dissolving. It's the burial before the growth. Your awakening is coming, not despite the unraveling, because of it, through it, from it. So let yourself come undone. Let the threads unwind. Let the old structures fall. Let the false self dissolve. Because underneath all of that, your true self is waiting. Your essential self is emerging. Your awakened self is being born. The unraveling isn't the problem. The unraveling is the path. Trust it. Trust yourself. Trust the divine intelligence that knows exactly what you need to become who you're meant to be. Your unraveling is your awakening, and it's happening right now.